Ja se cítí jako malý kluk.
Jo,
Koukej.
nedošáhneš
Ne,
na zem.
ne.
To je takový gauč divnej, tam zapadneš, veď?
Jo.
Ne.
Yeah. Okay. Hi everybody.
Hello everyone.
Today we're going to address one of the questions that was put to us about, I think it was a Russian girl. She's a social media influencer, YouTuber or something, and a raw vegan. And apparently she died. Now, to be honest, we don't really know much about her other than the fact that she died and she was raw vegan. And the question is, why did she die if she was a raw vegan?
What's her name?
I don't know her name.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know her name. She was a Russian girl, that much I know.
yeah.
And I think if you just Google Russian girl raw vegan dies, you'll find information about her. But she's not anybody that we've ever followed or had any contact with. So
But somebody asked the question.
yeah,
What was the question?
why we think that she died? If she's a raw vegan. So I think the first thing I want to say is that people die every day. This is just a fact of life, and you get people dying of cancers and diabetes and heart attacks and all kinds of things, and it never makes front page news. And these are all diet-related diseases, but still, nobody really bats an eyelid. Sure, people cry, but it's not something that makes headlines. Whereas now, this one girl dies, she's raw vegan, it's all over the internet.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah.
If you said somebody who eats everything dies, that's normal. If somebody who lives healthy lifestyle dies, suddenly it's a big problem. How come they die? They live healthy lifestyle. But we don't know their story. We don't know really why they die. People talk about things they really don't know, unless you know that person personally, maybe share house with them, being close friend, seeing what's behind the closed door, maybe you would have some insight. But I notice that a lot of people, they just talk about things they don't even know. They just maybe hear something, so they just repeat it.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I noticed, because when we got asked the question, I had to do a web search to find out more about it because it was all news to me. And I have seen some pictures of the girl. She's very, very skinny, anorexically skinny, I would say. So I think quite personally, she had an eating disorder of some kinds, and that's what caused her to die. Really, I can't go into more detail than that. She had an eating disorder, and people have eating disorders. Well, no matter what diet they're on, people can get an eating disorder. I think it was a possible mental health issue. Now, I know that I'm skinny, we're skinny, but I don't think that we're anywhere near the stage where people could look at us and say anorexic, although I know people do that. But if you really look at someone who's anorexic, you can see a huge difference between how we're skinny and an anorexic person is skinny. So she had mental health issues, I'm pretty sure, and this led to her demise in the end. So it's nothing to do with the fact that she's eating a raw vegan diet. That's just coincidence, really.
Do you know what age she was?
Oh, she was only a young girl.
Young girl?
Yeah, she wasn't very old.
Well, in that case, I don't think it was vegetarian diet because...
Raw vegan, because...
Oh, raw vegan,
Yeah.
raw vegan, sorry. Well, we don't know, we just can guess.
No, she was eating things that weren't fruit. She was on a supposedly raw vegan diet.
Yeah, well, raw vegan diet doesn't have to be always healthy. Vegan diet doesn't have to be always healthy. Vegetarian, and so on. There's so many diets we have. It doesn't mean they're healthy. You may feel better on such a kind of food, but it doesn't mean it is healthy for you. And if somebody dies so young, in my books, it's not even relevant to die. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be relevant to the diet, that's right.
Because
I mean, obviously the diet is a factor of it, but just to say you're vegan and that's why she died is simply not true. You know, there are plenty of people who live on a raw vegan diet and fare well from it. You know.
and that's not underlined. This is not the thing. For some reason, in most cases I notice the negativity is underlined. When it's something positive going on, like, you know, where we hear, there's 2 people living over, or more people living over 30 years on fruit, and they doing well, they don't go to doctors, blah, blah, blah. And what do you hear that? No. You always hear negativity, you know. Even fruit itself today, negativity. So, but we all know, even 30 years ago, if you say somebody, fruit is good for you, most of people would agree with me.
Yeah.
You know, they would see fruit as a healthy food.
Yeah.
Even they wouldn't understand you can eat just that, but besides that, so for some reason the humans, they prefer the tragedy than good news, bad news than good news. And I even notice, because I'm watching YouTube videos sometimes, and I notice the most popular videos are there is some tragic headline to it.
Yeah, tragedy sells, drama sells. Yeah.
So maybe, you know, it was just good article she died.
Yeah, yeah, it was good business for somebody, yeah. But the thing is, I think for us, for both of us, we kind of like know from experience that eating a raw vegan diet is not something that anyone should fear, and eating predominantly fruit or fruit as well. And we also know that every animal out there has a species-specific diet. And we humans, we are anatomically and physiologically frugivores. So fruit is the main staple food that we should be eating. And the fact is also that of all the, I don't know how many million different types of species there are on the planet, but of all of them that exist, every single one of them eats their food the way that nature presents it.
Exactly.
The only one or exception to the rule really is human and animals that live in close proximity to humans, like domestic animals or maybe urban foxes or something like that.
Animals who can be
Yeah, like ones that have access to our waste products as well that can eat it. But generally speaking, humans are the ones that eat their food cooked. And for us to be thinking we must eat cooked when every other species on the planet eats their food raw is kind of a bizarre way of thinking, really. It doesn't make any sense that we should think that we must do that. Suddenly with this like a super unique type of species that actually we can't live on food the way that nature presents it. We have to eat cooked food. And if we don't, we'll curl up and die. So, yeah, I think there's just so much misinformation out there, really. And because knowing this fundamental piece of common sense, it makes us not be at all concerned or worried about this. It's not something that I think anybody needs to worry about.
I think people who worries about this are people who doesn't have no experience.
Yeah.
They just hear things, they believe in what to hear. But everybody who has experience with raw food will swear by.
Yeah.
There's few people I heard, I was vegan, it almost killed me, you know, I went back to eating meat.
Yeah.
But that's rare.
Yeah.
Again, we don't know the full story.
No. Unfortunately, it's actually not as rare anymore. There's a lot of people that
Really?
they go, oh yeah, they go vegan and then stop being. But I think you've got to see the reason why they do that is because they get it. They don't get into it for the right reasons, and they think, oh, it's like a fad, or maybe they get into it for health reasons to lose weight or something. And these things are only temporary. They're not a permanent thing. If you get into veganism because you understand that it's the right thing to do to show compassion towards animals, then I think you're in it for the long haul. Whereas if you're in it for purely selfish reasons, which isn't a bad thing, because a lot of people do that and then they realise
It's okay.
that it's, you know, there's other reasons to do it too. But if you purely focus on yourself and selfish reasons for being vegan or eating a raw vegan diet, then I don't think you're going to last a long haul. You just won't. Yeah, you'll find it some excuse at some point or another, because cooked food is very addictive, and it lures us, you know. So it's we have to do it for the right. We have to know why we're doing it,
That's right.
and then we'll succeed.
When it's built on a strong foundation,
Yeah.
when the reasons are really talking to our soul,
Mm.
you know, then we can say, this is something I would never change. You can't,
No, you
you
can't.
know.
Now, we're not saying that this Russian girl wasn't in it for the right reasons. She may well have been, but unfortunately, she made mistakes, and she paid for them with her life.
I actually want to also say, because she died young, that I assume she could have had some health problems, and that made her to do raw vegan, because sort of people heal a lot of serious health problems via raw vegan diet.
Yeah.
But again, you know, we don't know her past, her history of eating, health, or anything, so we can't really
No.
make any conclusion which
Yeah.
is more clear.
Yeah.
But even we didn't answer a question, really.
No, because we don't know why.
I hope we still gave you some
Yeah.
information here,
Yeah.
which may be useful somehow to you.
I think she probably died of malnutrition. Maybe not eating enough or eating too much of the wrong things. Or, I don't know. But anyway, I mean, because she was, if you see pictures of her, she was anorexic.
Yeah, anorexia
So
is
she was
mental
under-eating. It's a mental health issue.
Health issue.
Yeah.
And
So-
people die with
And people
anorexia.
die. People die. People die on every diet. You're going to
You can-
expect it. There's going to be fruitarians that die. You know, there's going to, and die young too, because we're an experiment. Because it's not like something that you can turn to and see people doing it everywhere and get good advice everywhere you turn. It's not the case. People come into it, they don't know other people, they experiment. We all experiment. We experimented too. That's how I ended up losing a lot of my teeth, because we make mistakes. We're human. We make mistakes.
Yes. Because we wasn't taught, we learning the hard way.
Yeah, you weren't taught.
And when you learn hard way, you get hurt
Yeah.
in a way. Because you just don't know.
Yeah, you can get hurt.
And then, you know, when you do mistake, you have to pay for
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And that's just how the cookie crumbles.
It is.
Not cookie, what fruit crumbles?
That's a good
The-
question.
Yeah,
Is there any fruit that crumbles?
Yeah.
If there's any fruit that crumbles, write it in the comments.
Yeah, we'd like to know.
Yeah.
So we don't need to use the cookie.
Yeah,
We can use some
yeah.
fruit.
I'm trying to think. I can't think. Of
Yeah,
any.
don't think, because the video have to
Yeah,
be left
okay.
and right.
Yeah,
Okay, maybe
yeah,
finish.
yeah. Finish. I think we've said enough. Yeah, we waffled on enough. Yeah, yeah,
Well, I hope it was okay, and if not, we make another one. And
yeah.
we love you. Don't
Yeah.
forget about love.
Yeah. Take care and thanks. And any more questions at all, write them in the comments. We will get to them eventually, even if it takes us a while. We'll get there.
Because
Just
we can
slowly,
see
slowly.
them,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
And yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay, bye.